Hi guys, I got something this week. Look, it's Misson Gold by Mijello. It's watercolor. And I read so many things about this. I actually do have quite a bit of paint lined up for a review or a color swatch making. But I decided to do the Mijello Misson Gold first. The reason is that I read a lot about this paint online, and I was very curious what this paint would be like, because I read quite a few different things. Some people love the paint and say it's so rich and so beautifully vibrant, and other people say, well, yes, it's intense, but the pigments that are used are, well, disputably light fast. In any case, I wanted to try this paint because I'm curious about any paint that comes out and that's said to be good. And this paint certainly got some enthusiastic response here and there, so I thought I'd give it a go. I did find out, although I'm not sure if it's true, I'm really curious about this. We're going to find out in this color swatch I'm making, but I'm really curious about the granulation, because what I read is that Mijello has created a paint without fillers, that so it doesn't granulate. And I'm really curious about that. I really love granulation, so I'm really curious if I like the paint as well. I got this very cheap. It's a start set on Amazon and it's not available in the Netherlands. I managed to order it somehow though, and I'm really glad I got it for that price, because I was only able to get it at a huge price here in the Netherlands, which was way above my comfort zone for a first try of a paint that, you know, is not, it doesn't really, it's not really a solid brand here yet, so let's give it a go. I also want to remark that I'm doing a very quick review and a very quick, let's say, getting to know the paint, getting to know the colors and such. I got a few remarks about my not speaking about expert things like pigments. Well, the thing is, if you want to know about pigments, visit the sites of the manufacturers. I'm not going to get into pigments. I am not a chemist. I am a painter. So the only thing I want to share with you is my experience, which to my opinion is what I think is valuable for sharing, that you can hear firsthand from people who work with different brands what this kind of brand is all about. And if you want to know more about the pigments, then I advise you to visit the manufacturer's website to learn all about them. Speaking about the manufacturer, I got a starter set existing of 36 small 7ml tubes, which is an okay content. The Old Holland only got 5ml, so 7ml is okay. It comes in a cardboard box, looks luxurious, and then there is this plastic pellet. I'm not going to turn it around because it's already filled with paint. What I did, and what I do with every brand that I get, is I squeeze quite a bit of the paint from the tube straight into the pellet, and I let it dry, because one of the characteristics of paint that I need is that it dries well and that I can easily pick it up again with my brush. I can't show that to you today because I've only just squeezed the paint into the pellet, but I might get back to it later if it proves to be a problem. Mijello offers a Misson Gold color chart that feels really luxurious. It's a coated kind of paper, beautiful color chart, and I feel the colors on here might really resemble the colors, what they will look like once they're on paper. What you know, it's a Korean brand, and what you notice immediately is that there is Korean in here that I can't read. Also here, where it concerns opacity and staining characteristics, and some titles here are in Korean. I don't mind. I've been working with color charts long enough to be able to guess what's there, but it's something I noticed immediately. So I don't think this brand really aims at an international market. And maybe if they do, it's something they might want to reconsider. Because also the keywords for Mission watercolor is in Korean, and it looks lovely and exotic and interesting, but it doesn't give me any information. So, however, that being said, it does feel quite good, this color chart, and it's nice to have. Then on to the experience. So I'm really curious about the granulation, and I'm really curious about brilliance and intensity. There's a couple of things I noticed from this paint when I put it in the tube. First thing is that it came with some dust and hair. I don't know why it is, but I found some specks of dust inside the paint in the tubes. Don't know what it was. It could have been the plastic lids of the tubes that wear when you turn them around so that it sort of forms a hair. I'm not sure, but I've never seen it in other paints before. So that's something that I noticed. What I also noticed is that this paint is really thin when you pour it out of the tube rather than squeeze it. And I'm really curious what that means, what that says about the density of the pigments and everything. But we'll find out. I read that the Chinese white is different from all the Chinese whites in other brands. I'm going to zoom in a bit on the color chart. And that can be so because I read it is titanium white rather than zinc white, the pigments they use for it. I haven't looked into it and I'm not going to, but could be. So the Chinese white was a bit thicker than all the others. You're probably not going to see any of it on this paper anyway. Oh, before I forget, I will tell you what kind of paper I'm using to test it on. This is Clairefontaine Aquarelle Etival watercolor paper, 140 lb, pounds, cold pressed. Some people want to know that. So I'm testing the opacity of this on my written text, and it's not opaque, not by any means, not even if I apply it almost pure. So this is a very transparent white, we can say. Good for making pastels, but not, it doesn't seem to have the gouache qualities of some other Chinese whites that we get from other brands. Right, so the second one is lemon yellow. And it looks like this is a real staining color. What I noticed straight away is there is little flow. I applied this paint rather heavily on this top half of my square, and when I lay down some water right next to it, I don't see the flow that you often see in, especially in yellows. Somehow the pigments of the yellows are pretty dominant when working with watercolor paint, so they will flow into every nook and cranny that gets moist. Okay, same applies here. Permanent yellow light. Gonna do the same. And again, this is something that I find a bit odd, because normally when you lie down water right beside another color in watercolor, you will immediately see this clouding of color into the water. So I'm actually immediately incredibly apprehensive about it, and I'm wondering if I'm doing something wrong or if there is something the matter with this paint. So hold on. This is all live, this is all true first impressions. This is not a second or third color chart that I am painting. This really is what I am, my first discovery, my first moment of getting acquainted with the paint. So I'm diluting this a bit more to see if that's going to make a difference. And well, it makes a little bit of difference, but marginally. The color doesn't really run into the wet spot as I am used to, so this is quite weird. So, number 3, Permanent Yellow Deep, which looks really orange. And again, I find very little flow into the water. The color is very beautiful. It is bright indeed. What I hear people saying about it, I agree. It's very vibrant color. But look, again, when I wet an area, there's hardly any flow. Here you can see a little more flow is coming, but it takes a lot of time. This is weird. Now, orange. This is a very dark kind of orange. It's almost red. In some colors, this orange, in some brands, this orange would have been called red. But again, with this dark color, you can very clearly see that there is very little flow. So it's weird. Okay, then on to Vermillion. This color might be called Cinnabar in other brands, the orange. Vermillion, right. And I'm treating this brand exactly as the other ones. This Vermillion is definitely another kind of Vermillion than I see in any other brand. It's not Vermillion, it's very bright fire truck red, and it's, look, it's not Vermillion as I know it. Vermillion is always a bit orangey and cinnabar-like, and this has a pink undertone. I don't know what pigments they use, but it's definitely different from the Vermillions that I have from the Artist Quality. One thing that I do worry about when I order on Amazon or eBay is that you might get paint that's not from the real manufacturer. I am always a bit apprehensive about it, but well, I have all the reasons to believe this is the regular paint, the good paint. Oh, that's quite intense. The colors are intense. It's what people say to me. Mandy, the colors are really intense. You should give it a go. They know I love intense colors, and I do. But I'm just a bit concerned about this paint. Oh, look, there is a nice flow going on. Good. That's what you like. That's what I want to see happening. Permanent red. Moving on to permanent rose. Very deep in color. This would be a really, really beautiful color for people who paint flowers. This is a gorgeous color. And again, some flow, but not like the other brands I have. And that's not a good or a bad thing in itself, you know. It's a different... Oh, by the way, something's happened. Hold on. The Vermillion dried up like Vermillion. When I put it on the paper, it was red with a pink undertone, but it's actually really dried up Vermillion. And the orange as well became lighter in tone. So, okay, something to keep in mind then. Rose Madder. Rose Madder is a color I always use in portraits. It's what I would expect Rose Madder to look like, basically. But again, little flow compared to other brands. But let's give it time. Then there is Crimson Lake. Crimson Lake. Using a bit more water here to see if I can improve the flow. Something I would normally not do, but look, no improvement of the flow at all. That's really weird. I've never had watercolor that didn't flow. This is weird. But on the other hand, when you look at the permanent red, the flow in that was a bit better. There was even a little bit of flow right to the permanent rose. But as you can see here, apparently I touched the water on the top. Normally what you would have with other brands is that the pigments would go straight into that yellow orange, but now the water has come into the color. That's really atypical behavior, and it's something that I'm apprehensive about, and at the same time I get a little bit excited about, because that might mean that in mixed media there might be a few really nice things you can do with this paint. So like I said, it's not inherently a good or a bad thing. You just take it into account. Bright, oh god, that's horrible. This is not opera rose, seriously. This is neon, and I love it because I sometimes do paint with neon, but this reminds me, by the way, of and no flow, as you can see. There is some flow from the Crimson Lake into the Bright Opera, but the Bright Opera, well, it does seem to change in color a little bit. Well, it seems that this paint is working a bit when I paint it. It's odd. It doesn't look like my other opera roses. It's Bright Opera. It's almost neon. I'm really curious how it'll dry up. Red Violet. Oh, this is a gorgeous, it's like a mauve. I had a bedroom wall once in this color and I loved it, but I will never ever do it again because I found out that mosquitoes can hide extremely well in this color. You don't see them. So all my walls are white again. But look what happens. The water actually pushes the pigment right back up. Do you see this dark line? And that is really, really crazy. I've never seen that happen. Blue, clear, violet. I'm still looking for a good purple. Oops, can't read the letters anymore. Try to grab some paint and drop it here so that I can at least read what it says. It's a beautiful purple color, no doubt about it. Cerulean Blue. And that is something I can already see in the color chart. I'm completely amazed about this cerulean. This looks to me like a manganese blue or something like that, but not cerulean blue. Every brand that I have and that I have seen, cerulean blue is really very, very light blue. There is also no flow here, hardly any. This is a gorgeous blue color, for as far as I can see. I'll have to see what it's like once it's dry. It's a gorgeous color, but this is definitely not cerulean blue, so I'm really curious. I'm gonna dilute it very much, water it down very, very much, and see how it does make a beautiful blue sky, but this is not cerulean as we know it. Cobalt Blue, it says Cobalt Blue number 1, which makes me wonder why there is a number 1. There's probably, if I look at the color chart, I'll probably see there's also a number 2 or 3 or whatnot. And I'm doing this from the heart, you know, so I'm doing this by heart, so I'm not really sure, but seeing this now, I have my doubts whether this looks like Cobalt Blue. I'll see how it dries up. I have a feeling that this Mijello Misson Gold paint experience is going to be a bit odd compared to the paints that I know. Peacock Blue is one of my favorite blues because it contains green, and it combines wonderfully with warm tones and cold tones as well. It's one of the in-between colours that I like using. What I find in making this colour chart and painting these colour swatches is that every time I want to have my colour somewhere, I have to bring it there with my brush. So one of the characteristics of watercolor to me is that the paint will travel, and the paint travels over water. So if you want your colours anywhere, you simply make the page wet in that place. This ultramarine looks dull. This looks like a dull ultramarine. I have seen much more vibrant ultramarine colours. Actually, saying that, this one looks quite like many cobalt blues that I have in my collection. This cerulean blue is a gorgeous, gorgeous colour that I would, if it dries up as beautifully as I think it will, then I will definitely want it in my collection because it's a gorgeous, gorgeous blue. As well as the cobalt blue here, the number 1, and the peacock blue. I love them. It's a beautiful range of colour. Right, Prussian blue. Prussian blue is a colour I use a lot. Night skies are incredibly good for Prussian blue, or Prussian blue is incredibly good for night skies. This is a beautiful denim. This looks like denim. And let's move on to Indigo, which is one of my favorite. Oh God, this is I don't see any blue in here. If they could, they might want to call it paint. Yeah, if I put it onto my, no, I hardly see any blue in here. It's even blacker, and it's even blacker and grayer and darker than Payne's grey would be. This is definitely not indigo as we know it. It is a beautiful colour, but this is not indigo. Right, Van Dyke Green. This is a color I've never heard of before. Maybe it wouldn't, it doesn't say it doesn't exist, but I don't buy that many greens. I don't use a lot of green in my work. I'm not really a fan of green, but I've never heard it before. I know Van Dyke Brown, so I'm guessing they use a pigment that also happens in the Van Dyke Brown. It's a dark green. Oh, by the way, the ultramarine is drying up much less dull than I thought it would, and the same applies to the bright ochre and the red violet. I quite like how they dry up. I read somewhere that these colors will don't become much lighter while they dry up. Well, they don't, but they do change. They become beautiful when they dry up, but they change. Viridian, I never use Viridian. I don't like it. It's not one of my favorites. Although it goes together really well with the Cerulean Blue in this collection and the Peacock Blue. I don't use it, but it's a really bright and beautiful green. You know, I don't see, so far I don't see granulation, but I do see a lot of clouding going on. I don't know what the term is for that in English, but it can also be a very nice side effect. I like side effects in my paints, as you know. It's something to keep in mind, by the way, if you use my reviews to buy your paints, to base your choices on, is I work with mixed media a lot. So I use watercolors primarily, but I also add a lot of different other media. So my review can differ a lot from a review by somebody who paints with watercolors in a classic way. Right, sap green. Oh, that's a gorgeous, vibrant. Wow, that's bright green. I love it. I'm not too much into greens, as I said, but this is kind of gorgeous. Okay, so sap green. Now we move on to the olive green, which is a color I use a lot. Oops. I like it. It's a beautiful warm color. Then we move on to yellow green, and yellow green looks like Kermit. It's incredibly, it's not as intense as I thought it would be. Schminke has a yellow green that looks like this. The Schminke one is more intense, more vibrant, but I'm really curious to see how this will dry up, because I've already seen that I should be a little bit patient before I jump to any conclusions. So I will. Greenish yellow, that's also a color I use a lot. And this is a duller variety than the ones I'm used to that are brighter, more vibrant. This is more earthy, but I like it. I like it very much. But you know, that's personal preference, doesn't say anything about the quality of the paint. Right. Moving on to yellow ochre, which is a color I use a lot. And well, you know, the only place where I ran into bad yellow ochre was, I think, in the Pebeo watercolor set that I reviewed a while ago. Raw umber, that's also a color I use a lot. Oh, this is a very different, oh no, sorry, I'm confused with burnt umber. Raw umber. Well, no, it is a bit different. It's not as greyish as I know it to be from other brands. No, this is not what I would call umber, I think. But I like it. Let's see how it dries up. I have to count because burnt sienna. Oh, that's a lovely warm brown tone. This looks like Mars brown, and I think the Mars brown that I'm referring to is by, I think by Schminky, and it's a beautiful fiery brown that is incredibly warm, and it's red and yellow at the same time. Beautiful. I love it. I use it a lot when I use browns. Actually, I had to buy that same color a couple of times already to stock up. Light red, and light red, I think it's about English red or something. I never use this, but I love this. Look, this is gorgeous. This is a very beautiful color. I never use English red in my work, but this beautiful color. And when I see the color chart drying up as bright as it does, I'm getting a bit excited, I have to say. I was a bit frightened when I saw the colors don't flow so easily. Okay, oh, this looks like I wanted to say châtain. As in a hair color. Can you say auburn? It's between copper and mahogany for hair colors. Is that the right word to call it? Red brown. Beautifully. Beautiful. I do like the tones that they chose for. I also like the Dyke Green, which is, yeah, I like it. Okay, so burnt umber. I'm trying to keep focus for a bit. Burnt umber, that is, no, this looks totally unlike the others that I have. My burnt umbers are all much more greyish because I use them for shading a lot, and this actually is just a brown. It's a beautiful brown, but it's not the burnt umber that I'm used to. The Dyke Brown. Well, every brand has Dyke Brown, and yeah, it looks like Dyke Brown but lighter. The Dyke Browns that I have, many of the Dyke Browns that I have are stronger in color. Sepia. What I noticed about sepia is that it looked black. This is what you call an intense color. Wow. It doesn't only look black, it actually is a shade of black. This looks like this looks like the lamp blacks that I have. Look, there is I don't see any brown in it. We'll have to see how it dries up, but this actually really looks like the lamp blacks that I have. I'm trying to make the letters visible here. Okay, and then finally Ivory Black. Which is not as intense as the sepia, but it's a beautiful black. Okay, so color chart finished. I'm gonna let it dry and give you some conclusions about this paint. Conclusions, my first impressions, that is. So the paint's dry now, and there's a few things I can say about the paint, a few conclusions I can come to. There are a few obvious ones that I've already pointed out to you while I was painting. The vermilion dried up really beautifully, a beautiful vermilion color. The permanent red is, one of the things I read about this brand of paint is that the colors don't fade while drying. Well, the permanent red absolutely did. It's a dull kind of red, and compared to the reds of other brands that I have, especially the best red that I have from the Scheveningen Red Light from Old Holland, this is absolutely not a very bright color. I would have to start comparing pigments. That's not really my thing. Somebody on YouTube will probably do it, but in the red range of colors, I don't see one beautiful red. The yellows are fine, as is the orange. The vermilion is fine as well, but if you want a darker red, then I don't really see a good red, at least not in this 36 color set that they have composed. The Crimson Lake the Rose Madder is a beautiful color. I'll definitely keep using that in portraits. The Crimson Lake I find a little bit duller than I thought it would be, but it doesn't help that this paint doesn't flow very well overall. As you can see in nearly all the colors that I have here, all the color swatches, I made them wet right up to the bottom line every time. And as you can see with many colors, the color did not sink down. Only a few actually did. What really, really stands out, it just jumps at you, is this bright opera pink. In fact, this is a pink like you wouldn't believe. This is neon. I have no idea whether this bright opera pink is the same pigments as it is in the Winsor & Newton that I have in the, I have the Daniel Smith as well, but I have yet to try it. I can try it right now, by the way, because I bought that one too. And why not give it a go? Oops. But, oh, I can already tell this is definitely not the same pigment. No, it's not as bright. It's a beautiful pink color, but it's nowhere near as beautiful as the other one. And I'll also take the Semelier. And if you're wondering about my opera pink fascination, because it really is just a fascination. And here's the Sennelier, which I use a lot. And I think in Winsor & Newton it's called Opera Rose. It's a little more dull. The Daniel Smith is really bright, beautiful pink. But, you know, we don't have to wait for this paint to dry to see that this paint comes nowhere near the bright opera pink or opera rose that we see in the Mijello Misson Gold. And you could say wonderful, beautiful pink color that you can get nowhere else. But the way I see it is that this paint is so incredibly bright, it's so neon, it almost gives light, that I can't imagine this color will stay at all. So if I were to do a light fastness test with this paint, I think this would be one of the colors to fade quickest very quickly. Did I say quickest very quickly? Oh my god. Red Violet is a gorgeous color, a really gorgeous color, and I haven't compared it to any other color, but this is a color that I think stands out in its character of the purples and the reds. It's beautiful. The bright clear violet is also a beautiful purple, a dark purple, but as you can see with many colors, water pushes the pigments away, and that's something that I find a bit odd. But still, if you mix it very well and then lay it down on the paper, it will be good. Cerulean Blue is a very pretty blue color, but it is definitely not cerulean blue as you probably know it from other brands. Beautiful, but very different. Cobalt blue, exactly the same. To me, it does not match the other ones. Peacock blue is one of the colors that flowed best, but still you can see where I eventually lay down my brush again to make sure I could still read the name of the color. You can see it also pushed away some of the pigments. This paint is said not to granulate, and I do see some granulation in the ultramarine deep. I see some granulation there. The color dried up less dull than I thought it would, but there is some granulation. The Prussian blue is a gorgeous Prussian blue. It does exactly what I think a Prussian blue should do. Indigo is just not indigo. That's just, this in my mind is you could, if this were called paint grey, then I would sooner accept it than to have it called indigo. There is hardly any blue in it, or none at all maybe. Well, maybe a little, but just no. Paint grey, maybe. Indigo, no. Dyke Green is a beautiful, well, army green, beautiful color. Viridian, beautifully vibrant. But also, if you look at how the water just pushed into the pigments, that is really. In all my other color charts, I don't see this happening. The Hooker's Green is a beautiful Hooker's Green. The Sap Green is really beautiful, vibrant and rich in color, and matches a few greens that I have by Schminke Horadam. The Olive Green, standard, really beautiful. Yellow Green is Kermit Green. It's really like, hello, I'm poisonous, don't touch me. It is as vibrant as is the Opera Rose, which when I look at my camera, I don't know if that will still show on your screen, these colors really stand out in brightness. The Greenish Yellow is a gorgeous warm yellow-green tone. The Yellow Ochre is a beautiful one. What does surprise me a little bit is that I see a hard line here. I made the entire swatch wet and still I see a hard line here. So that pigment really needs working on to help it flow. The raw umber as well as the the raw umber looks perfectly normal. Burnt sienna is a gorgeous warm color that I'm definitely going to use when I paint trees or something landscape like. The light red is a gorgeous red brown. It doesn't look like Venetian or English red. I love this. This is a color I would use, and it reminds me of certain types of rust. The red brown is also a very beautiful color of brown, which sort of reminds me a bit of purple or mauve. And then the burnt umber is a color that I know the color to be a little bit more grayish, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful brown color. The Van Dyke Brown is could also have been a little bit more dark and grayish, I think, compared to the colors I know. The sepia is well, if you buy this sepia color to be sepia, you're going to be disappointed. If you buy it thinking it's lamp black or neutral black, no, lamp black I think, then you will be happy with the color because it's a beautiful color. And of course the Ivory Black is a beautiful black. But overall, this paint, the price that it's available for here in Europe, I would not buy it. It's I saw this, I found a price of 200, 300 euros, which it's definitely not worth. That being said, I need to start working with this paint because actually what this paint reminds me of is the White Nights paint. The White Nights paint by Yaka or St. Petersburg, they are called differently in different settings, I know, is similar in the sense that it also has very intense colors, does have some problems with light fastness on some pigments, but what they do have in common is that they behave differently from the other artist grade paints that I have. So I will have to do a light fastness test, which I won't. I will probably just see what happens, and but I need to work with this to see what I can do with it. The same applied to my Sennelier paints, which I didn't like at first, but I have to say that right now this is my #1 go-to paint because it's so bright and it's so vibrant and so transparent, so perfect for layering, which in my mixed media project is absolutely fantastic. And I can imagine that I will start using this and these bright colors. I will probably digitize my work. I wouldn't dare use this in a commission. So I hope you found my color swatch painting useful and my first impressions. I will work with it in the coming time. There's one thing you have to keep in mind that I heard. I didn't test this myself, but I read it. This is a beautiful big palette, and it seems very convenient. But what I've already read is that the paint will stay moist. It never goes fully dry and hard. So if you want to travel with it, I've already read people writing don't do it because it will start running into your palette. I can't vouch for that. I can't say I've had that experience, but if you are a painter who paints a lot while traveling, then you may want to wait a bit until more people have used this paint and can confirm or deny this, well, possible problem with the paint. Thank you very much for watching, and look out for new videos on my channel, which will be there soon. Bye! Hi guys, before you go, I made a mistake in saying that I was having the Daniel Smith Ochre Rose, which I didn't. This is both Sennelier Ochre Rose. I made a mistake and I saw it when I was putting my things away. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to test the Daniel Smith, which I also have, just to show you the difference. And then I forget my jar of water, of course. Once you embark on the forgetting train, you will forget everything. Right, so I have a little bit of paper here. And I'm going to try it straight from the tube, and this one looks horribly pink. The Daniel Smith Ochre, what's it called? It's called Opera Pink. Right, so here we go. I'll zoom in for you. Whoa, that looks neon as well. Just like the Mijello. Light fastness, non-rated. I can imagine, because this will probably not be light fast, but you know, for digitizing, no problem. Well, that's one bright opera pink. It's not as bright as this one is. I'll just show you, but it comes close. Comes very close. Okay. Put my mistake right. Now I'm really off. Bye, see you next time.